of the greatest gifts ever given to retro RPG fans has been Octopath Traveler. It was a game that resurrected the genre just when it seemed dead and popularized the HD 2D style. It was a pure throwback with great sprite designs, a fun battle system, and a really impressive soundtrack. So when the same team behind Octopath Traveler began to develop a new tactical RPG with a similar graphical style, I was more than intrigued. When we all saw the first trailer for Triangle Strategy, it appeared like a modern Final Fantasy Tactics, and the demo for the Nintendo Switch gave us an even greater impression of what it would be like. It left many of us wondering whether the story, battle gameplay, and scales of conviction system were really as promising as they first appeared. Since the title's been out for some time now, and I've had a better chance to play it, I wanted to use this opportunity to explain whether I think it lived up to the hype. But first, there's the elephant in the room, the game's name. When I first previewed this title before it was released, I went on the record saying I didn't like the name. In fact, many of us didn't even think Triangle Strategy would end up being the final name since it was first dubbed Project Triangle Strategy. But alas, just like in Project Octopath Traveler's case, the name stuck. So did I change my mind on this over time? Nah, I still think it's a dumb name, and it represents a missed marketing opportunity. Those who intended to play it despite this aren't affected by it, but I have to think the name discouraged potential newcomers to the genre from ever trying it. The name aside though, there's a lot to love about Triangle Strategy. Let's start with the story. It takes place on the continent of Norzelia, which is controlled by three great countries: the Kingdom of Glenbrook, the Grand Duchy of Esfrost, and the Holy State of Hyzant. The three powers were involved in a grueling war until 30 years before the events of the game, but maintaining the peace has often relied on politics and economic agreements. The chief protagonist, Serenoa Wolfert of Glenbrook, is set to be married to Frederica Esfrost. In addition, Glenbrook and Esfrost plan to share the proceeds of a newly discovered mine. Both agreements are intended to strengthen ties between the two countries and keep the peace. However, when Serenoa is sent to inspect the mines with Dragan Esfrost, an unexpected violent incident jeopardizes all of these plans, and as it turns out, all aspirations for harmony on the continent. So right off the bat, you'll witness how real the story gets. Both it and the characters are dark and gritty, and you'll get Tactics Ogre and Final Fantasy Tactics vibes from the get-go. The most important characters alongside Serenoa are his best friend Prince Roland, the strategist Benedict, and Serenoa's fiancée Frederica. However, you end up meeting and recruiting many other characters throughout your journey. But honestly, the sheer number of characters introduced right at the start was a bit overwhelming, but I think the game does correct this a bit, and it's easier to piece things together as the game progresses. If you're into grid-based tactical RPGs, you'll already know what to expect from the battles. Each character can move once and take one action on their side's turn, and the player and enemy turns alternate. Battles have set victory and defeat conditions that are displayed on the screen immediately prior to the battle, and in the preparation phase, you can alter your unit placement before entering combat. Also, each individual character fills their own niche. There are pretty rigid archetypes here. For instance, Serenoa is a swordsman with balanced offensive and defensive abilities. Roland is a damage-dealing spear knight that can travel long distances on each turn. Benedict is a tactician that specializes in buffing your characters. And Frederica is a pyromancer who can use fire-based offensive spells. All the other characters you can recruit have their own classes as well, and no character can change their archetype. However, after fulfilling some basic prerequisites, including level thresholds, you can upgrade a character's class so that they gain new abilities and become more powerful. For instance, Serenoa starts as a swordsman, but he can become a sword fighter when he reaches level 10 and obtains a Medal of Bravery. After that, he can become a sword master when he reaches level 20 and obtains a Medal of Valor. So yeah, there's a single progression line when it comes to classes for each character. There are lots of classes represented in Triangle Strategy among all the different characters, so there's definitely a lot of variety with lots of great unique abilities that are fun to experiment with. Switching characters in and out of my party to find the ones I like best was probably my favorite aspect of the gameplay. Character abilities expend TP, which function like magic points. You gain some new abilities simply by leveling up, but some abilities require being promoted to the next class in your character's line. There are also special Quietus skills that are much more powerful than regular TP skills, but can only be used a limited number of times because they require scarce and precious Quietus points. You start the adventure with the ability to use one per battle, but you can eventually get more as you progress. Outside of the promotion system and abilities, your characters can also scale higher in power by upgrading their weapons at the smithy, which you can unlock in Chapter 2. Expending coin and items to do this not only increases the damage potential of the weapons, but can also add special weapon abilities that can be used in battle. This was yet another layer of customization that I loved, and everything worked together to allow me to choose not only which characters to prioritize upgrades for, but also which method I should use to do it. The HD 2D graphical style that Octopath Traveler made famous works absolutely perfect here as well. It successfully combines the best aspects of the visuals we remember from RPGs long ago with an updated look. The 2D sprites look great in tandem with the 3D maps, just as in Final Fantasy Tactics. Panning the camera works perfectly, and it's easy to get a good view of the battles even with varying elevations and structures. The environmental quality is about the best I've ever seen for a game like this too, and you'll notice it right away. The colors are bright, the structures and objects blend in perfectly with the battlefields, and even small things like the shimmering water look amazing. Honestly, I expected the navigation to function exactly like Octopath Traveler's, but it really doesn't. The graphical presentation itself is similar, but in Triangle Strategy, when you have control over movement, you're mostly moving through a rotatable area rather than a straight-up 2D view like Octopath Traveler featured. If Triangle Strategy had one unique facet that sets it apart from all other tactical RPGs, it would be the Scales of Conviction system. At various points throughout the story, your primary characters cast their ballots to make key storyline decisions, and Serenoa technically doesn't get a vote. He can only break ties. However, you can influence the way the votes go through dialogue decisions, which can alter the circumstances significantly. It definitely is possible for the player not to get their preferred outcome, and each choice you make alters your conviction levels. In addition, the recruitment of certain characters is only possible with specific conviction value requirements. This means you won't be able to recruit all the characters in a single playthrough. Who you end up with is completely tailored to your choices. The system allows you to call the shots on the story, which can split into several distinct branches based upon your choices. It is truly a creative and well-designed method to make each playthrough a unique experience, and it really was a fun treat for the player. Personally, I had a good time mulling over several decisions I wanted to make. Based on your decisions, you'll ultimately receive one of 4 different endings. The first 3 are more or less standard endings depending on which conviction value Serenoa has the most of. In other words, they're separate unique endings for utility, morality, and liberty. For the 4th ending, well, let's just say there's basically no way you'll get it unless you read up about how to do it. It requires a few prerequisites and is fairly difficult, but it is considered the best ending. I really have to praise the soundtrack too, it's really on another level. The main theme rings through my head the same way many of the great RPG classics do, and there's so many more great tracks here too. Unshaken Conviction, Unwavering Spear, Pride of the Three Houses, and Until That Day are among the best. It has more than 70 orchestral quality songs, my favorite of which I've spread throughout this video. The composer was Akira Senju, who wasn't involved in Octopath Traveler at all, but the style is somewhat similar. I think it's about as good as you're gonna get on the Switch, and it's the best modern RPG soundtrack I've heard in a long time. When it comes to odds and ends, I loved how the tile overlay colors made it extremely easy to understand where I could move to and which units I could attack. I also wanted to praise the pincer attack functionality, where you gain an extra attack if you manage to flank an enemy along with an ally. It was just a fun idea that always gave me something else to consider when I plan my attacks. Many reviewers have criticized the game's dialogue length. Indeed, in between battles, you're often subjected to lengthy storyline segments, some of which last longer than 5 minutes at a time. I did notice though that some of the longest segments seemed to be packed into the first few chapters, and that they actually became progressively shorter as the game moved along. I don't mind the storyline segments though, because I'm kind of the player that really gets invested into RPG stories like this anyway. In fact, I think the character development quality was off the charts. The story was a real joy to follow. I thought about this long and hard, and I honestly think Triangle Strategy is one of the greatest tactical RPGs ever released. Its few flaws don't detract from the awesome battles, the dark and interesting story, and the fantastic soundtrack. The Scales of Conviction system opens up so many possibilities in the gameplay, and there's just so much to discover. There's even several different difficulty levels to tweak it to your desire. This is absolutely a game worth buying, so get it now. It's available on both Nintendo Switch and on Steam. If you're a retro RPG fan like me that's mostly given up on modern games, this is the perfect one for you. So what do you think? Is Triangle Strategy as good as Tactics Ogre, Final Fantasy Tactics, or other tactical RPGs? Let me know what you think in a comment below. As always, like, subscribe, and click that bell for more retro gaming content, and please consider supporting my channel via YouTube's Join feature to receive member exclusives, such as advanced videos and complete video transcripts.